One of the worst parts about Hollywood today, aside from ignorant celebrities preaching to you about issues from their protective bubbles and bad screenwriting, is the fact that even if the actors in the movies are good, you're still not allowed to like it unless it passes a social standard. So saith what we're told are the high arbiters of all that is good and just in this world, the modern day feminist. So just, you know, prepare not to like anything, really. The problem with modern-day feminists hating movies is a multi-pronged one. It would border on amusing if third wavers just complained about the lack of formidable and central female characters in any given movie. Seriously, the complaints they come up with are sometimes so absurd that they become funny, as you'll see below. It's the fact that they are so listened to and relied upon by producers and directors that their influence seeps into films, turning something that is often beloved and celebrated into heaping piles of trash that no one wants to watch. Furthermore, films that don't obey the politically correct checklist set by feminists are lambasted by people with platforms too large for them. Let's take the latest masterpiece from Christopher Nolan, Dunkirk. Dunkirk is a movie about the tragically undertold story of the British retreat from the Germans in France during World War II. Due to it being so dangerous for warships to come and rescue them, and the attack on the British mainland looming, the British government conscripted smaller civilian boats to go and rescue them. Now this is set in the 1940s in Europe, where the front lines of the war effort were dominated by, you guessed it, dudes. Nearly nary a woman was seen in the midst of combat during that war, so of course, when a movie maker goes to accurately tell the story of the film, you're not going to see too many women. This was a huge problem for feminists and its lapdog media. Marie Claire released a piece by a naive woman who doesn't get it titled, "I think Dunkirk was mediocre at best, and it's not because I'm some naive woman who doesn't get it," literally calling Dunkirk a movie clearly designed for men to man out over, and an excuse for men to celebrate maleness. Even USA Today's review decided to include the phrase, "The fact that there are only a couple of women and no lead actors of color may rub some the wrong way." By the way, the fact that the story tells of a dominantly white army in a dominantly white part of Europe and that no other races were seen isn't racism, it's just accuracy. Dunkirk, which was an amazing movie, go see it, failed the feminist standard because it didn't contain enough women doing things that didn't involve men. In fact, this feminist standard for films actually has a name. It's called the Bechdel test.
It's Bechdel.
Bechdel? It looks like Bechdel.
No, it's Bechdel.
I'd rather call it Bechdel.
Why?
Reasons?
No.
Fine. The Bechdel test is a metric feminists use, sometimes whether they know it or not, to make sure the movie is feminist enough for approval by using 3 points. 1. It has to have at least 2 or more named female characters. 2. These 2 women must talk to each other. And 3. The subject they talk about must not be about men. Movies are then graded based off this metric to make sure feminists can open up to liking it or not. According to the Pass the Bechdel Test campaign, 69% of the International Movie Database's top 250 films did not pass the Bechdel test. Recently, failures include Dunkirk, John Wick Chapter 2, and Kong Skull Island. This means that feminists must look down on superb films like John Wick, and in response, the media will carry that message and put a shade on films like it. Hollywood, in its quest to be the most enlightened and politically correct place on the planet, unless it's against certain groups, will bend over backward to please the paragons of progressivism, thus creating movies to specifically obey the feminist checklist. And that would be okay if they were just original movies made for feminists, but no. The feminists have to hijack beloved franchises and characters to push their belief on everyone. This was best seen in the recent Hindenburg of a movie, 2016's Ghostbusters, where the cast was replaced with all women, and the dudes were either bad guys or idiots. The entire film felt so shoehorned and try-hard that it was lambasted by audiences. The professional Hollywood critics liked it enough, but Hollywood gonna Hollywood. Not having learned the lesson from that $70 million loss, some celebrities and feminists are saying it's time for the role of iconic British spy James Bond to go to a woman. No, it is not time for that. It will never be time for that. Stop it. The failure of this kind of feminist metric and kowtowing can be seen in all sorts of media. Forcing feminist elements into stories and narratives drives people away, be it movies, comics, or video games. If you do force an agenda or social metric onto a piece of media, it stops being escapism or art and starts being propaganda. It alienates people from the tale you're trying to get people to follow and the characters you're asking them to fall in love with. Also, trying to make feminist movies the only kind of movie that should pass social smell tests not only alienates people from feminism, because it demands they stop loving something because feminists don't like it, it alienates people from art in general. Being so militaristic and critical about media that doesn't fit into that specific box will stifle creativity, and eventually will bore everyone to death with the same propagandistic cookie-cutter concepts and methods people have tried to ram down our throats before. If we didn't like it the first time, we definitely won't like it the 50th. See, there are so many stories out there that need to be told that won't be diverse in any way. They won't have a diverse range of characters, be it in gender or race. And that's okay! Not every piece of media needs to have the cause of the day's message in it. It's okay for a film not to have a checklist of a minimum of strong female characters with meaningful dialogue. If the story doesn't need it, then the story shouldn't have it. And if the story doesn't have it, that doesn't make it anti-female or problematic in any way. It's another story in the multitude. This isn't to say that some movies with strong female leads can't be appreciated. Heroines like Mad Max Fury Road's Furiosa and 2017's Wonder Woman are loved because they were characters that didn't carry with them a message. They were just strong characters who did the right thing and acted bravely while still being totally relatable. They had flaws, vulnerabilities, and softness alongside their badass personas. Now, these women, I could watch all day. Why? Because they aren't feminists. They're just great characters. So, non-feminist movies? That's not sexist. It's just a better movie.
I mean, the situation in North Korea is pretty dire, but I don't see any gain from going to war with them.
Yeah, especially monetarily. If South Korea's GDP gets hit, ours will indefinitely be too.
This video now passes the Bechdel test and is feminist approved.
It's Bechdel.